Have you ever signed a contract? Well, if you're an artist, then I'm sure you must have signed many contracts. I'm also an artist and I have signed a lot of contracts till date. But every time I am signing a contract, there are so many clauses in that contract. I mean, though I read the contract from the first page to the last page, from the first clause to the last clause, but what I feel is that there are so many technicalities involved when you are signing a contract. There's so many, points illustrated in it that most of it just goes on top of my head. So what I do is I stick to the payment terms and that's it. और वहीं पे contract खत्म हो जाता है मेरे लिए. मैंने इस बारे में मेरे बहुत सारे फ्रेंड्स से पूछने की कोशिश की. I reached out to a couple of my artist friends and tried to understand what a contract actually means. But to my comfort or discomfort, most of them were as clueless as I am. So I decided let's find out what actually happens when we sign a contract. And today on my show, I've got someone who makes contracts for everyone. He's a counsel at Supreme Court of India and also the High Court of India. He's also the founder of International Legal Alliance. Today, my guest is Mr. Jamshed Mistry. He is a very famous entertainment lawyer, and I know him because when I was signing my first contract, he was the one who helped me sign it. And today, I got him on the show to discuss more technicalities and to understand what an artist should actually read in a contract in order to safeguard themselves and their rights. So, without further ado, let me get Mr. Jamshed Mistry on the show. And guys, if you have any question that you are dealing with, just write that down in the comment section. And just a disclaimer, today my show is going to be in English. So I'm sorry if you don't understand the language. Yeah, let me get Mr. Jamshed Mistry on the show. Hello, sir. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. How are you?
Well, I'm good and I'm feeling so much better that you're here. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to me to talk on Vartalap with Aakriti.
Sure. Most welcome.
So, sir, as I was talking about it, most of us artists, we do not understand law as you guys know it. You make it. And the problem with signing contracts is that it's written in such a complicated language that most of it we don't understand. So what we do is we stick to the payment terms and that's it. And we don't know much about what else to see in a contract. So I'm inviting you today to solve all these queries and we will go into all the technicalities. But first, let's understand who is an artist in the eyes of law.
Okay. So just as, I know there are instances of people who have been models and lawyers, like someone who we know very well, but that's an ideal, that's an ideal situation where you know best of both sides. But I understand these are, see, essentially, I think just as anything that's creative, okay, is an artist. I mean, even the legal profession to a very great extent is quite creative in so many ways. I mean, you have to you have to be in fact in court sometimes if you have practice as a theater actor, and there are some colleagues who've actually acted in movies and on stage. Some senior advocates have acted on stage as well. So I mean, they're very, it complements sort of each other. But yes, to answer your question, who is an artist? I think it's very wide-ranging subject, and see, today media and entertainment globally has become so sort of huge and big that I mean, I would say from a tattoo artist to a painter to anyone. Of course, I mean, what you normally mean is somebody who is sort of acting in a film, a movie, an OTT platform, or a fashion model. They're all sort of, in fact, let's be honest, sometimes even, today sports has become an entertainment event. And earlier, entertainment tax used to be charged. Why? Because it was an event. You were entertained. So I think the term artist is very, very wide, and there are a lot of people, and it, of course, it depends upon which act it falls under. So the dictionary meaning is one, but the you have to consider it under which particular act it falls under, and then define uh, the term artist.
Yeah, because when we go to the dictionary meaning, it means anybody who creates is an artist. As a human being, we are always creating, no matter you're in business, you're doing music, you're doing acting, you're a model, you're a writer, you're a painter, everything is art. So how do you define different contracts for each one of them, or do we just follow the similar pattern for all kind of artists?
No. So I think let's just go back in point of time, and let's go back and let's keep it India centric, okay, for a while. Essentially, I'll just go back and tell you that till very recently, in the sense, a few years ago, media and entertainment law as a subject was never taught in law school. I mean, I was never taught media and entertainment law. We just picked it up on the way because, as I told you earlier, I'd done sort of backstage for fashion shows. We had started an inter-college event called Catwalk in the early sort of in the end of the 80s to 90s, which really did well, and you had some of the great supermodels and fashion choreographers all come out of that very interesting show. I'll very happy to talk about that also. And then, in those days, I also, for example, when Bryan Adams had come down, I was very fortunate. I was studying for law, but I did backstage, and it was amazing. And I think we got a lot of information on how these large international events happened. I had curiosity kills the cat. I actually used to go back and ask these organizers in those days where FEMA was in place, foreign exchange, FERA. It was FERA first. And I said, how do you get these people in? What permissions do you need? Can I get a copy of the contract? And in those days, there was nothing like confidentiality. So a lot of the event companies used to happily, I had collected the Michael Jackson contract. I had collected Bryan Adams' contract. Then, certain other famous artists had come down just to understand what went into a contract like this. Like, for example, in a Michael Jackson contract, one thing that really surprised me was in his green room, you had to have orange juice at a particular temperature. Towels had to be at a particular temperature. Now, these were international contracts which were to be executed in India. But in India, you have what is known as the Indian Contract Act. So any contract that an artist, and we are using the term artist, which means all, okay? Whether you're doing a feature film or a sort of a fashion show, everything. So what are the basics of a contract? You have to be, first and foremost, an adult. You have to be competent to contract. That means you don't have to be of unsound mind. You have to also, there has to be some remuneration that has to be paid across to you, and then several, other clauses. Now, typically, what does a contract look like? The contract first names the parties. There may be more than one party. That is, they say, so-and-so company, then the name of the artist. Then there is a sort of a clause, the second part of it, where it describes why you are entering into the contract. And then the various terms of the contract. And in the terms of the contract, you also have several clauses, including how both the parties should behave and do these sort of respect each other during the term of the contract, how it should be considered, even in case the contract needs to be terminated. What are the other, for example, the clauses like jurisdiction. And is it, the courts in Mumbai would have jurisdiction, or courts in other places? I mean, quite often it could be a foreign country. And the other thing is there are other alternative dispute mechanisms called arbitration, which are also mentioned sometimes in the contract. And of course, the other most important is copyright. Okay, for example, as a performer or as an artist, you have certain rights. So usually the contracts in India are sort of service contracts, in the sense you hand over most of your rights to the person who's actually paying you for it. And But in a lot of countries now, those have been sort of separated, and there is a lot of litigation on these issues, that if I hand over my rights and I don't get paid for it, then what? Then also the issue of credit, that you must get the credit for what you've done. So all these and these contracts then remain, they're signed. Now, of course, in India, each state you have to pay stamp duty on it. So that's another issue that you sometimes come across, that is stamp duty paid, not paid, etc., etc. So this has become almost like a science.
I am going like way back as someone who doesn't know anything about law. Like there are certain contracts in which a stamp duty is mentioned, while there are other contracts in which there are no stamp duties. Sometimes people say they just write the terms and conditions on the email and they send it to you. And other times there are people who will just write down clauses on a WhatsApp message and they send it to you. So what is exactly a contract which is, which a government of India would approve of?
No, this government of India has nothing to do with this. The contract
Law of India
between two parties. Okay, stamp duty is usually paid on the value of the contract. Okay, now usually, for example, and there is the Stamp Act. I mean, you have the Bombay Stamp Act, Maharashtra Stamp Act, and Indian Stamp Act, etc. So that is a certain fee that is paid to the government on executing the contract, that is signing by both the parties. And also it also depends on where you bring the copy of the contract into. Now some states it's cheaper, some states it's not. So that's a technical issue. The important thing is that if the contract is not stamped, earlier the law was you cannot enforce it. Now the courts have said that no, that is not a hindrance, and that you can pay that deficit amount to the government, but then continue with your dispute. So that part is fine. See, ideally, I would not recommend a contract to be, at least today, although now our courts are getting digital and things like that. I think email is fine. Email is safe. With attachments, no difficulty, that is acceptable. Of course, hard copy is always, preferable. I mean, I know now the courts have, for example, at least in COVID times, etc., have accepted issuance of summons also through WhatsApp. But I mean, the technology needs to be accepted, and then, but ideally, you and email is, and please understand, media and entertainment law is a very universally accepted, law. It's even from the lawyer's perspective, it's the most common and most generic. Other countries have different laws on different subjects, but this is very universal. So whether you're in South America or in Africa or in Mumbai, by and large, the contracts are extremely similar, and that's a great thing.
So that actually answered my questions, that you should not agree to any terms on WhatsApp because that's not legally applicable.
Well,
right?
It's not a question of agreeing. I'll tell you. For example, in the days gone by, what used to happen is they used to come to a shoot. For example, as a fashion model, you would go to a shoot. You would start shooting, and then suddenly the person in charge from the production company side would come to you and say, can you do one thing? Just sign off on this. It used to be called a release form. Okay. And
Yeah.
those release forms used to basically say, and why were they important? Because you were not yourself in that, it was your image that was there. And that image, in order for those rights to be handed over for a particular sum, or you waived off your rights, that those were then signed off on what was called a release form. Now, the release form of those the days gone by are now incorporated into a contract. And therefore, the contract has, so the contract is the document that really need to look at.
Wow. Okay, now let's move to the rights. What are the rights of an artist?
Okay. So essentially, I mean, as an individual, you have to understand one very important part that, unfortunately in India, and I say this with is most unfortunate, the media and entertainment industry has not been recognized as an industry. Now, what that means is, for example, you have the chemical industry, or you have, any other, the electronics industry, IT industry. Okay, now because they're recognized by the government as an industry, you have all the persons who are employed in that industry getting provident fund, gratuity, and so many other benefits. Now, in this industry, unfortunately, except for loans for IDBI Bank, the government has not yet recognized this. And this is, I think, a
I
fundamental
totally
thing.
agree with you. I
Okay,
totally
so
agree with you because I've faced it myself. We are independent artists, and artists generally don't have any backup. We don't get pensions, we don't get loyalties, we don't get even to get the basic things like a loan. It's so
yes,
difficult for an artist. We have to produce thousands of documents, and still there's so
correct.
much difficulty.
Yeah,
We are the one who are entertaining the entire nation. We are the
correct.
one who are spreading positivity. Artists has always taken forward the bandwagon of positivity for everyone. And we are the ones who are suffering the most. In the present time, we see so many artists committing suicide, with the biggest of Sushant Singh Rajput, like such a shock for everyone. In this scenario, what can an artist do?
So, couple of things. I mean, I'm not a financial expert, but I think one is that you can, apart from your, you can, of course, your public provident fund and things like that. That's how you should sort of save. It's very similar actually to the legal profession. We also have that issue because we don't have provident fund if you're a practicing lawyer. But you can also get yourself insured. I think that's a very important, because in today's day and age, suppose if somebody goes after the actor, or unless you have your own company, and professional indemnity insurance would be a great thing to look at. And I think you can get covered for this worldwide. It also helps when, for example, you're doing shows and shoots abroad. I mean, as a lawyer, although, for example, insurance is not compulsory, okay, but if I practice law internationally, which I do, it's absolutely mandatory. I'll just give you another example. When, for example, we did the Times of India Film Awards in Vancouver in Canada in 2013, they insisted that the entire show has to be insured. And a particular large reassurance broking company bid for it and got it done. And the contract went into some 48 or 46 pages, only to ensure that 2,500 artists, including Abhishek Bachchan and his wife and others, and Priyanka Chopra also, flew from India or wherever to be a part of it. So insurance, they will not allow you to put one nail into the ground. They will not open the gates of the stadium if you are not insured. Okay, and here it's reverse. But we have. have to get there. You know, that's the other thing that, which is really major. That look here, you are now, this industry contributes so much to the world economy. This industry is, although tiny, but it is India's sort of, one of the best exports that you have. And why are you not? And therefore, if you are a global player, please treat Indians not as a separate bracket, but as though they are global in every way. And I think, with the OTT and things like that, we're going to see these changes. It will come. I mean, you can't remain isolated like this for very long.
Jamshedji, you have practiced law in India and you are also pretty much aware of laws in other countries. What is the major difference that you see when it comes to an Indian artist and an international artist?
Okay. The first thing, an Indian artist you can actually contact on the phone still. International artists, no way. You'll have to get them. They always have. It's through managers and it's through agencies. I mean, in India, that's also happening. So that's fine. I think one huge change that social media has actually done today is the fact that, which was not there earlier. The artists are now more accessible in a strange way, although they have their social media teams. So people know what they're up to. And I think that's great. That's good for the, they're able to, except of course they're movies, but they're sort of their day-to-day lives, what's going on. I mean, it's good or bad. I think it's good. But when the other thing is when they are on, on set or even prior to that, I think, Indian artists are, I mean, a lot of them, they're extremely professional. I mean, let's not sort of, divide it into, are they, with the circumstances, with the way in which, things are. I mean, okay, let's take the simple. You remember many years ago, in a fashion show, you would never get paid even by check. Now, it's all different, right? So I think we are moving up the ladder. I think, it was great. We were able to talk to Winston and Baker a while ago. This is the first time they did something on India, and even to get them interested in India was according to me a great thing. Now we have international film festivals where people watch Indian movies across the world. This year, of course, everything is digital, so it's great. I think we are reaching there, and we are a powerhouse. Let's not. I mean, I know 15th of August is coming up. I think we must be much more proud of our country than we are. That's fundamental.
Absolutely. We have created massive artists like Mr. Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan. These are people who are famous everywhere in the world. You go to the remotest place on this world, on this planet, and people would not know India, but they would know Shah Rukh Khan. Oh, Shah Rukh Khan. Yes, we know. We have seen their movies. So the entertainment field is definitely growing.
I mean, I've dealt with people like Javed Jafri and even my very, very dear friend and client Shamak Dawar. I mean, he's another amazing person who's they're truly international in whatever they do. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely they are. So now there are artists, which are signed up with an agency. So the agency takes care of all their contracts, their finances, their negotiations, their terms. And then on the other hand, there are artists who go solo, the freelancers.
Yes.
So what do you think is better for an artist, to go with an agency or to be a freelancer? Legally.
Okay. Well, I think it is a question of okay. I think let's be just come right to the beginning. When is a person sort of pushed when is a person entering into this the business of say fashion media entertainment? Okay, normally, of course, I know there are shows which have children as artists, etc. That's a different segment. I don't want to get into that. Usually, it is during college time, if
Yeah.
generally where someone is sort of talent. They watch you in a dance performance or a show, or the way you talk or the way you sing, and they say, oh wow, so and so. There are talent scouts, legit, illegit, all of them, who are constantly looking out for talent. And that's the time. And then that person is given his or her first break. And I think that's the time where a person needs to know the law. Uh, in fact, I would say more than them, it's their parents who should also know the law, because it's not because suddenly somebody will come and say, oh, you know what, I pay you so much for, can you do this, that, and the other. So you're instantly into the contract, as you become a part of the contract. Like, I'm presuming you're 18. If you're not, then your parent or guardian has to sign that contract for you. So this is the fundamental part. So if you had someone who can guide you at that particular point of time, I think that's a great beginning. Number one. The second thing is, I normally the one big tip that, I mean, it's so simple, is please take everything in writing. Because today, how do you prove something that is oral or telephonic or whatever? Okay, I mean, you try and record the call and things like that. That's okay, but get things in writing. If somebody calls you on the phone, send an email back asking them to confirm this, because
Yeah.
that is the first step. Otherwise, oh, you know what? We never said. He said. She said. It doesn't work. And then, of course, uh, yes, ideally, as you go along, of course, I think agencies, it's their business, so they will sort of give you, and I think this is something you would probably be able to answer better than I can, because I have never been handled by an agency. So we know some of them are very good. There's no two ways about it. There are foreign model agencies also. I think they need to be regulated. I think that's very important. Uh, International agencies, some of them are very good in what they do. Uh, but I think those terms and conditions are extremely important. The next set of people who also need to know the law are the individual sort of, the managers. They also need to know the law, because they are then your representatives, who are going out and sort of discussing things with the corporate world. So they need to know. And if you have somebody who doesn't know, and he or she then sort of commits something on your behalf and you're unable to do so, then you're in trouble, because he or she is acting on your behalf. So I think that is something that they need to, and that's one of the reasons why with the Praveen Gandhi College we started a special lecture series, for where we had a whole host of professionals, speaking to, students on this particular subject. And I think from next year we're going to go completely online for this, because it's very, very important. And I'm saying this because even as a lawyer today, uh, we don't, even as an entertainment lawyer, there are some extremely technical issues which even I'm not familiar with. Okay, so you have to, work with the system, and you must know your, system inside out. So yes, the law is one aspect, finance is one aspect, and the third thing is, how do you protect yourself? So insurance is important.
Yeah, so there are these set of artists which work with the agencies. There are other set of artists which work alone. Then there are these artist associations like Sinta and others.
Yes.
They promise you to safeguard you in terms of any dispute. In fact, to an extent that right now, if you're an artist, an actor in Mumbai, and you want to shoot for a television show or for a commercial, you need to be a member of one such organization. Otherwise, the production house will not allow you to work. So, what is their role? The role of these organizations like Sinta.
Okay. So Sinta and these others are what are called trade unions, okay, where they represent that is there, for example, in any other and their objectives are obviously very clear. They're supposed to safeguard not only the rights of the artist, but the reason why I think they started that you need to be a card holder was because they were finding that there were a lot of people who were coming in, including we had, I believe, a lot of problems with foreigners coming in on tourist visas and then shooting in India, which is also not correct, because you need a work visa or an employment visa. So that is one aspect. I also tell you that in fact it's very important, because there are a lot of foreign artists who do come to India, and now that India has really caught the global eye. What happens in their case is that these agencies have to ensure, because of FRRO, that is the Foreigners Regional Registration Office, which is a part of the Ministry of for Home Affairs, they insist that you must give them a certain basic amount of, I think, $2,000 or $2,500, etc., a certain amount that will sustain them for their stay within India. Of course, if you're an overseas citizen of India, you're of Indian origin, then you get a waiver and you can work in India. And this is particularly important because everything today is international. So people from everywhere are coming to India to work. So I think that's one. As far as, see, I'll tell you, this is my personal opinion. What has happened is the redressal mechanisms that some of that are in place or need to be revised quite drastically. Okay, I think we need to have, for example, and now thanks to the pandemic, it is possible to have a completely online dispute resolution for any issue. Okay, that is very, very important. It is possible to go online, to have arbitration online, to have mediation online. It doesn't matter where you are, which country you are in. Even if you have a principal sitting in Japan, they can do it at any stage. You can also, the arbitrators or the mediators are trained professionals who know how to resolve your dispute. Now these type of mechanisms must come in to India. Okay, I say this on record. I unfortunately, Mr. Kulmeet Makkar of the CEO, the Producers Guild, I had this chat and unfortunately he passed away. But I hope they take this very, very seriously. This is extremely important. This will resolve a lot of problems that exist. For example, the Bangalore International Mediation and Arbitration Center is going to come up with a system by which you can resolve disputes even as low as 25 to 50,000. So these are great improvements and great strides that we have made in the law. It just needs to translate into being implemented now, especially in the media and entertainment industry.
So how do I know that if I can resolve a conflict online? Where should I go if I want to, if I have a conflict?
So what you really what needs to be done, in fact, what we need to do as lawyers and people who are aware of this, we need to first educate all concerned. And I think we will do that. We will be speaking to, associations, including, FICCI, ASSOCHAM, all of them, telling them that, listen, this is now available. I mean, our entire court system is shifting. It's becoming a hybrid system. Now, if once that comes into place, then and ADR is always a better option. So we will try and bring it out as far as possible, and then this can be put into contracts, and it can be explored. See, there is no dispute today which cannot be resolved, and you'll be amazed that on very difficult and very sort of expensive commercial litigation, sometimes you have mediators, international mediators, who get these things resolved in a day's time. If they can resolve it in a day's time, what you mean a fashion dispute can't be resolved in a matter of hours? Of course it can. It's just and the whole objective is to get people to you know continue with their work in a proper, free and fair manner.
Right. So if there is any conflict that we are into, we have to first go to an entertainment lawyer and then try and resolve it. Is that what you mean to say? We cannot do it, an
No,
individual, a citizen, artist cannot do it on their own.
no, no. I'm not saying that. Well, ideally, in fact, yes, if it's good if you went to a lawyer. There are also sites that are available which give you information, very basic information on the law, and I think that is important. You need to first fortify yourself. You must know what the law is, okay?
Right.
And then, like, I'll give you a good example. Very recently, okay, the Consumer Protection Act was amended, and what did it bring into play? Something that was coming for a long time. The fact that if you endorsed as an artist a particular product, earlier you were not held responsible. Now, under the new act, you if you say that this particular product has particular qualities, then you jolly well have to see and ensure and be satisfied yourself that yes, this is
My God,
what it is.
that's going to hang a big sword on every influencer's neck.
Agreed.
You see social media, so many influencers just promoting products for the money.
Yes. Now this we are following. I mean, they've brought this in because this is exactly what has happened in the US. Okay. So you are bringing that in. All right. Now, again, when you bring this into a country like India, how can you protect yourself? The only way currently I see you protecting yourself is through insurance. But if somebody sues you, at least insurance company will pay and ensure that right, wrong, or whatever is a long story. And especially the criminal justice system in our is not a fun place to be in. So I think that's something that people need to be acutely aware of. So these are the things that and the other thing that I say every time is, please remember, law is as old and is evolving as much as a newborn child. So you have to keep up with what's going on, not only in India but even across the world.
We were discussing about the legalities, and you were telling me about certain websites where an artist can go and understand about the legalities and the laws which are applicable to him.
Sure. No. So what I was basically saying is that there are basic websites where you can actually go and get accurate legal information. And an important thing is that now once you get that information, then you go to a lawyer who then can advise you, because quite often they're not, like a sort of a medical doctor. You say, oh, I have this part of my cheek is paining. I mean, it could be a toothache, it could be something, a problem with your bone structure, it could be a million things. So if you know exactly, or even remotely, what the real problem is and how to resolve it, I think that helps a professional then, immediately sort of zooming into the exact issue, the problem, and then you can get it resolved a little faster. I think that would help.
So can you tell us some of these sites
Yeah. So,
where we
so
can go? Is it, yeah.
yeah, sure. So there is this, it's called, they started by Vidhi Legal. It's called nyasa.org. I mean, that is one. There are several of these which are also, if you, Google and, ask for, particular information, you can get that. But the thing is, you should get that sort of verified by your lawyer, because there's a lot of information that is available, but accurate information. So you have to sort of, because the law, again, like as I told you about consumer protection, it keeps changing. So you need to know what exactly the position is.
Now there is another law. I don't know if it is a law, but there is something which we always have to sign in a contract while we are doing a television commercial. That there is always a clause which says that, if you have worked for supposedly a hair shampoo, then you
Yes.
cannot work for another hair shampoo for a particular period of time. Now, what
Yeah.
can an artist do in that particular, if you're bound to a contract like that? Because if somebody is a hair model, then that person will definitely do hair commercials, and then you basically restrict your income if you
Right.
are bound in a contract like
So,
that. Yeah.
so the interest. Why these things are done is because that particular company would have then spent a lot of money on advertising for that particular product, and they would like you to be sort of exclusive with them. So that's and therefore the contract should be negotiated, and if you are exclusive for that, then according, your this is a negotiation issue which your manager or your agency must ensure that you get remunerated sufficiently, and including, renewals. For example, what you find that your contract is actually, say, for a year or 2 years. You find that the hoarding is up for 7 years. Then what happens? And so
Yeah.
they should ensure that even for subsequent years, either they pay you a lump sum, or they renegotiate. I mean, I remember one particular contract of a supermodel of the 80s, very interesting, where that company had a clause which said that in future years you could renegotiate at a higher fee, which is very interesting. You don't see that these days today.
Yeah. So basically, what happens is, if the artist is new, I have faced it personally when I was very new in the industry, that you don't have a say in these contracts more often or not. They just replace you, they put someone else. So the artist is so scared that they don't open their mouth, they don't say anything, and they agree to whatever terms the other company or the brand is giving you or is telling you to follow.
Okay, so one is this so-called, demand and supply situation, where, I mean, in a free business world, they feel that, they can do. See, I mean, and I also know this, that if you are good in whatever you are doing, there is always there isn't a vacuum on the top, but there is always room on the top for you, and it is very important, the role of your manager, or if you're managing yourself, again, extremely important to ensure that at the end of the day you get a fair deal in all these situations, like for example, and let's go straight to that. The problem with, for example, actors in our country, vis-a-vis, I know we know foreign actors who've come here and done rather well, even in the Hindi film industry. Now, I've been asking them that how do you sort of, manage to sort of live in India, and Mumbai is a very expensive city. And the answer that I
Yeah.
gave was that they gave me. They said it was based on royalties that they earned as extras in a Hollywood movie. Now imagine that you've been getting paid enough to sustain you to come to India and work in India. Sorry. So I think that while over here it is just a contract for hire where they just pay you, and in fact the law on royalty is also different. We follow the French royalty system, and wherein they say that the first author is the actor himself or herself. So I distinctly remember this being argued in court on behalf of the producers. They say, oh, we don't know how to calculate royalty. I mean, I think that's far-fetched. But
Yeah.
these fundamental changes are absolutely necessary today in our system. You step out, go outside the territorial waters of India, go to a foreign country. Can anybody behave with them there? Answer is no. They will be, immediately. In fact, you know,
Yeah. Okay.
yes, I think it has to be sort of drafted very well. Okay, the person who's drafting the clause must, or even if they are not, uh, you know, uh, sort of, if they don't accept that, you must ensure that the amount that you pay to give it up, okay, should be sufficient enough. It should be a fair wage. That is important for you. Okay. So suppose if your royalty over the next zone, and it's not difficult, you can calculate that in the next zone, so many years, over 20, 25 years, this is how much it is. But if I'm giving it up one shot, it's like like a fixed deposit that I get X amount of money, then I can take that, put it in the bank, that can earn interest, and that will pay me uh, dividends accordingly. So this is
There is a question which Titiksha is asking.
yes.
If the contract can be avoided as it puts risk. Okay, she's asking, can the contract be avoided as it puts restraint on trade as well as contract law?
Well, in the sense that, well, there are two aspects. One is what is known as a specific performance of the contract. You have to, of course, first send a legal notice and ask that this is what the contract has really said, and this is what, say, a person is not performing, or there is a breach of a clause. For restraint of trade, that is a much wider, uh, you know, uh, angle. Also, just remember, and that you, unfortunately, as a fashion model or an actor till date, are not covered under the labor laws. Okay, so and let me explain. Labor laws in our country basically say that if you fall under the category of what is known as a workman, okay, and the term workman again is very wide. And for example, an airline pilot or a person who's technical, he also falls under that. Now he has labor law on his side, and therefore he can go to court and get a restraining order saying that this is an unfair trade practice and therefore stay. Now, as a as a senior worker, okay, maybe, but as an artist, where you are covered under contractual law, getting such an injunction against somebody may be difficult. They will say that no, this is a suit for damages, etc. So that is one. So arbitration and other modes are much easier. Now, what do I mean by arbitration? Let me explain, because some People may not be aware of that. That is an alternative dispute resolution system which is accepted worldwide. It means that you can have a judge, you can have a lawyer, somebody who is familiar with that branch of the law. The great thing is that they can sit and resolve the dispute. There is no timing. You can sit at midnight also, as long as the parties to the dispute are willing to sit down. And you follow a very similar system where there is a claim, there is a reply, there may be evidence that is laid, and finally a judgment or an award. And that award is then enforceable in a court of law. And the challenge to an award in arbitration also is very limited. Okay, you can't challenge it on very any ground. Our high courts have been a little more liberal. Internationally, they're very strict. That once an award is granted, they will not. So it cuts out a lot of litigation, and it also ensures that the person, the aggrieved party usually gets. And the other thing is costs. In India, still they don't award heavy costs. In arbitration, you can actually get costs because you've been wronged in a particular way. If somebody asks, is it always better to get an arbitration clause? Yeah. Of course, it is much better. Okay, but the reality is that a lot of people in legal advisors of companies, for some reason, don't want arbitration clause. But I would definitely recommend arbitration, at least a mediation clause, at least so that your disputes can be. Another interesting aspect. You can even appoint an arbitrator right from in the beginning of while you're negotiating a contract with them, saying that we think Mr. X or Miss Y is a good person, because when you're entering into a contract, usually both the parties are hunky-dory. They know that it's fine, but it's later on that a problem arises. So agree on a mutual person. So usually there is one arbitrator or a panel of three. So each party appoints one each, and then the two arbitrators appoint what is called an umpire. So that's usually how it happens.
Okay, so I hope that answered your question, Ms.
A very old friend of ours who's just joined, Atul Kelkar.
Yeah. Hello.
Welcome, Atul.
So now I want to move on to the very important question, which is about moolah, money. Sometimes, we are working, we have the contract signed, but the monies, the payments, they don't end up coming on time. Or other times the duration of the payment term is so long that, the artist is the one who suffers at the end. What can an artist do in these situations, in both these situations?
Okay. Now, again, today, again, it all depends upon, are you an individual? Are you represented by, an agency, a manager, or somebody else? Or are you, as you said, a member of a trade union? So these people are supposed to, represent you and ensure that you get your dues. This is one of the reasons why you would join a contract. A trade union as a member or as an agency to represent you, because you don't want that headache on your head. You say, listen, I'm an artist. I only know the creative part, and I have my management will take care. And quite often, then that's the position sort of worldwide. This is typically how it functions. But yes, you should, even as an individual, be aware of, it also would make sense to take a little bit in advance, because then, that can offset, payments that are to be made subsequently, etc. Earlier, what typically used to happen, checks used to bounce, etc. Now, if you did that, you'd be in serious trouble. if you took somebody, because 138 negotiable instruments has been tightened up a lot. So I think that's earlier that was a or if somebody refuses to pay you, you can also take them to under the insolvency laws, saying that you are a rightful creditor and they should, pay you, and they their company would wind up rather than paying you their dues. So these are a couple of things. But I think there is a need for a sort of a mechanism that should be in place to resolve these little disputes here and there. I mean, we call it little, but I completely agree that these are very important from an artist's perspective, because money is not very regular, so therefore whatever they get, it should be properly taken care of, and it should be, I mean, at the end of the day, someone is doing a job for you. I mean, so pay them. What's the problem?
But this, you are absolutely right. If we've done a job, we should be paid. But an incident has happened recently, and I told you about it also over the call. I will not name these people, but a very famous popular actor in India, he worked with a production house, and then the payments never arrived. The payments never arrived. The poor guy kept waiting. Then he, being the member of a very, very popular and the major actors association in India, went to them. And then the association, even though they take yearly money, yearly fee to be a part of the association, which helps protect the right of an actor, did not help the actor. In fact, they asked the actor to pay 10% of the amount which they would recover from the production house. So, in this situation, the artist is the one who is at loss. We pay firstly the fee of the association, then we also pay 10% on the fees that we are not getting, the money that we are waiting for, the money that we have worked for. Can you hear me? Hello. So can't we go first? Yeah. Did you get my
no,
question? I
answer,
think we lost connection.
yes, I did. So it's very simple. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, if you're a member of a club or a society, and there is a problem, then what would you do? The first thing is you need to remind that your union or that you are a member of, to say that, listen, I have paid this to you, this amount, and I would expect you to take it up. So this is one aspect. Whether now what their terms and conditions are, that if I get on the basis of contingency, this is something like, for example, in India, for example, lawyers cannot charge contingency fees. So I can't say that I will take up your case like in the US, which is there, of course, permitted, on the basis that if you win, then you pay me, say, 20% of your fees, and till then I will not charge you. That's prohibited under the Advocates Act. Now, as far as these people are concerned, you have to make it very, very clear to them that I'm paying you for my membership is for that, is so that you represent me. Now, again, I'm coming back to what I said earlier. I think the mechanisms that are in place today need to change, and they need to ensure that quick dispute resolution on subjects like this are done. They should have dispute committees which are extremely or even hyperactive. They should ensure that this is immediately done. They should get in touch with the concerned producer, director, whoever it is on the other side, and ensure that this is settled as quickly as possible. And that is why having good alternative mechanisms, and I genuinely think, I think they need outside help. They need the help of trained mediators, etc. Because in the commercial world, whenever such things happen, why is it that these disputes, of course, some large dispute because of egos and so many things will happen. I mean, you can't stop that. But other issues will get resolved because you have a great mechanism in place. And I think that's what's missing here today. And this is so fundamental to the fashion and entertainment business, and we must get it in as quickly as possible. So I think this is
Right.
what needs to be done.
Right. Thank you so much for all your suggestions, Mr. Mistry. I have just one more question which just came to my mind. It's about digital media. Now,
Yes.
we as artists, we are creating content every single day, be it a model or an actor or a musician or a painter or whoever. Any artist is creating content every single day. But then we put it out on our social media and it is for everyone, the world to see. Sometimes there are people who will take down that picture or that video or that music, which is very easy. You can easily go and download anything or take a screenshot and use it for their benefit and their purpose. Now, as an artist, how can I protect myself from that, from being a prey to one of such situations?
Oh, you mean to say that if someone now is that an original creation of yours? That is very
Yes.
important. Okay, if it is
Yes.
yours, then again the Copyrights Act comes into play. Again, what is the sort of what have you like for example, can a concept be copyrighted or not? Very interesting. I'll give you a great example. There was a particular script writer. Okay, she went to a particular producer through her agent, a very well known agency, went there and she handed over that script. And they spoke, they negotiated. She left it on the table. That can you leave a copy? We'll go through it. No. Then in the after the negotiation, they said no, it's not possible. Now what the mistake that she made was she should have collected that script back. Okay, she did not. Now
Wow.
then what happened is that particular producer hires someone else, and that other scriptwriter is told that, listen, this is something that we have created internally, and can you go ahead and uh, sort of modify it, and then we want to sort of make a feature film based on this. So this person worked for hire, got it all together, and when it was put out, and the sort of the rushes and all, and the sort of before the actual movie, the before the premiere, uh, this scriptwriter, what she did was she went to the association and said that I want the two scripts to be compared. Now, the Screenwriters Association has that facility. So they compared the two and they found a lot of similarities. This producer said, you all have no jurisdiction, I don't care. So she had to go to court. Okay? She went to court. Now, interestingly, I was briefed on behalf of that writer who was engaged subsequently by the producer. So our stand was that, listen, we really didn't know that this was somebody else's, and why are we being dragged into this? Now, this matter, the single judge of the High Court said, agreed in favor of the scriptwriter. When they went into appeal before two judges or a division bench, they held in favor of the producer. The scriptwriter had to take it to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court finally decided that this matter has to be settled. Please, you have to pay her, and you have to give credit to both of the screenwriters. So I thought that was a very fair decision. But unfortunately, what happens is, can you imagine, there's so much antagonistic feeling that happens, and it goes through the legal process, and ultimately the decision that the Supreme Court says is no, nothing doing, we will not listen to anybody, sit down and solve, get it resolved. This, what the Supreme Court is doing, should happen, according to me, at the first instance. The, the judge or the unions or whatever must say that no, listen, sit down. There's nothing that is not resolvable. Sit down and ensure that it is fair. This is something that we must have in our system. And and why, the party spends so much money, to engage top lawyers and this and that. I mean, complete waste of time and energy. Of course, case law is is developed, but that is what it is.
Thank you so much, Jamshedji, for your time, for all the information that you provided us. It was a very, very educational session for everyone, and I personally learned a lot. I would really like to thank you for your time. And in the end, if you would want to give any message to the artists out there.
Yeah. No, I think the whole objective is that you may be local, but please, think global. This is a very, very interesting and, creative side, and please sort of go ahead and do whatever. And I'm sure all these issues and problems, as you go along, will sort of, resolve themselves. But be smart. That is the the important tip that I can give you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Take care and happy Friendship Day.
Yes, to you too. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, viewers, for joining us on this lovely, lovely session. We will see you next time on Saturday and Sunday. I come live with Vartalap with Aakriti every Saturday and Sunday at 4:30 in the afternoon. So next week again, we are going to have some interesting topics to discuss. And if you want to know what these topics are, then quickly go follow my account. I will see you soon. And by the way, these conversations are also available on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. So you can watch it, you can listen to it, and yeah, be engaged with the show the way you like. I will see you next week. Until then, a lot of posts coming up on Instagram. See you guys. Bye bye, and have a great week ahead.